The LS engines have a couple different options as far as automatic transmissions, and of course all the engines can use the 6-speed manual Magnum transmission. The 4L60E, 4L65E, 4L70E, and 4L75E are all using the same common case. And I mention that because depending on what the application is and how much room the transmission tunnel in the vehicle has, you may want to make a selection based on that. The 6L80E transmission, which is also compatible with the LS, is a larger case transmission, requires a larger tunnel, in some cases may require some modifications. Now the 4L is a very capable transmission, especially for a street-driven application, and comes in several torque ratings. The 4L60E is rated up to 380 foot-pounds, the 4L65 up to 430 pound-feet, and the 4L70E 495 pound-feet of torque. Now this will handle the vast majority. For a high output engine, the 4L75E is rated all the way up to 650 pound-feet of torque. In most cases, probably overkill, but will work, and of course, bigger is better in most things performance. But again, all of these use a common case and have if you have a car with a clearance issue with transmission to tunnel, these you need to be aware that there are options to provide to your customer. So for those of you that might be working with a customer's truck that is four-wheel drive, there is an option again in the 4L60. The 4L70 transmission is available with two-wheel or four-wheel drive. And worth noting, just so we don't have a misunderstanding, that is transmission only. Converter has to be ordered separately, and the four-wheel drive transfer case is not included in this package. So when you're talking to your customer about a new transmission from Chevrolet Performance, you might consider the fact that they all have a slip yoke design on the tail shaft as opposed to some of the OE that uses a fixed yoke. Now, if you're a little unsure, or the customer's unsure about what size to get, on page 28 of the 2024 Performance Catalog, there's a chart that shows the slip yoke sizing for all the transmissions and the variable splines. So you might consider that as a fallback go-to to help out make that decision. There is one big difference to remember between the 4L and 6L series of transmissions, and that is simply that the 4L has two torque converter options which must be ordered separately. The 6L transmission also has two options but is included along with the trans controller as one package. So when you order 6L, it does include the converter, and the internal controller is part of that package. So for your customers who are looking for the latest technology in automatic transmissions, Chevrolet Performance has provided an 8L90 and a 10L90 from the production offering. Now, as far as compatibility with other engine families, the 8L and the 10L are not compatible with earlier engine families. In other words, the LS Gen 4 engine is not compatible with the 8L90 or the 10L90. The only engine family that it will work with is the Gen 5, LT1, and LT4. They have unique calibrations, and at this point I'd recommend that you look at the package in total as you're putting together a cost estimate. This transmission package includes torque converter, controller, and harness. So anything else that you look at that might be a la carte, you want to take that in consideration. There's real value here. And of course, it's calibrated to work with the GM Chevrolet Performance parts. As I mentioned earlier, the transmissions all include a slip yoke style tail shaft housing, and I have a dedicated part number for both the 8L and the 10L. The gear ratio, first gear in the 8L is 456 versus 469, so minimal difference, very little to tell on the street, and of course the overdrive ratio is slightly different as well. But I do want to emphasize that the correct controller for the transmission and the engine must match, or you're going to have problems. You're going to have unhappy customers. As I mentioned earlier, the Chevrolet Performance Controller will not work with a takeout, if you will, or other OE transmission. The calibration is questionable as far as another brand. So in short, what we're suggesting is that the calibration controller should only be sold to be used with the Chevrolet Performance transmission for optimum performance. So one of the differences that we do pick up with the 10L90, if you have a late model L8T or L8P engine, the 10-speed does have a separate part number, and of course correspondingly the torque converter and controller are programmed for that application. So if you have that latest greatest, if you will, version of the Gen 5 engine, you might want to go right to the 10-speed because we do have that application. If you elect to do something with the 8L90, we do not presently have a converter or program that will work and be compatible with the L8T or L8P. For that, you're going to want to go to the 10-speed, the 10L90. We do have a separate part number, which again includes converter, controller, and harness. So there is a dedicated part number which has been added since we last got together for that latest of the Gen 5 engines. So when you're working with Chevrolet Performance, one of the sub-brand names that you'll hear often is Supermatic. And that is defined by Chevrolet Performance engineers as a modified production part, upgraded either in components, design, or calibration. So while in the interest of not repeating too many times, we won't mention Supermatic every time we talk about it, but just know that the whole family of automatics supplied by Chevrolet Performance is under the brand Supermatic, meaning there has been an upgrade in some fashion or another. So when you're talking to your potential transmission customer, and we've talked earlier about the size of the physical casing on the 8L and 10L transmissions being somewhat larger than usual, if you find that it's going to be prohibitive to get that larger transmission in the vehicle, we do have a unique situation that would allow the use of a 4L transmission, 4L 65, 70, 75, to be bolted up to a Gen 5 LT engine. That's with a special bell housing adapter, and we have all of the installation components that go with that for the various LT1, LT4, and now 8LT applications. So if you're interested in that, or if that is a solution to a problem, I just want you to know that we do have that. It's the LS Gen 5 LT adapter kit, and the details of that are actually on page 31 of the 2024 Chevrolet Performance Catalog. One thing to keep in mind as you're dealing with any recommendations for Chevrolet Performance parts, be it engines or transmissions, is that you have a resource available online at any time that has the I-sheets, or what we call the instruction sheets, for every engine, every transmission. They're available for viewing or download without purchase. So if you're questioning, or your customer's questioning about how deep, how complicated the install might be, I'd recommend that you point them to that instruction sheet first, take a look at it, see what they're undertaking, and make the purchase decision accordingly.